Lin K anxiously tagged behind Siyihan and tried to persuade him. Ninth brother. Hold on. Ninth brother. Calm down a little. Ninth brother. Didn't we hear from a Nyef family already? Ninth sister intentionally planned to get captured so that she could personally scout the situation and collaborate with us on the outside. Otherwise, if we barge onto the island completely unaware of the situation there, it'd be too dangerous. Furthermore, the winds aren't right currently, so we can't go to the sea. So it'd best if we waited for Ninth Sister's signal. Lin K talked a truckload, his mouth about to cramp from how much he spoke, but the man striding forward ahead of him merely straightened his cuffs and said, Prepare a boat. I'll go there myself. Lin K sent Jiang Yin a look to make him help persuade Siyihan. So Jiang Yin cleared his throat before saying, My lord, based on the incident with Nye Linglong last time, Miss Nye's martial strength must have fully recovered. Moreover, Miss Nye is resourceful and clever, so she most likely won't be in any danger on the island. Lin K's lips twitched. Resourceful and clever? He didn't expect Jiang Yin to have the talent of fibbing without batting an eye. Siyihan put on his big, black jacket and buttoned it. Jiang Yin, if I don't return within 3 days, do as I previously instructed. My lord, Jiang Yin started. Unfortunately, the duo said everything they could, but Siyihan still couldn't put his mind at ease. In their eyes, Yi Wanwan was the president of the Fearless Alliance, Bro Flat Top, the second miss of the Nye family, and the demon instructor of Scarlet Flames Academy. Her martial strength was extraordinary, and she had a plethora of worldly experience. So she was a veteran who absolutely wouldn't be at a disadvantage. To Siyihan, though, his image of her had always been the first time he met her. He regarded her as a weak and naive little girl. In the end, Siyihan led Lin K and several elites from Azura and rowed a boat to head to the island. At the same time, on the island, when the people learned Yi Wanwan had a way to get her hands on a ship, the majority of them were still skeptical, but at least they had a trace of hope. All the leaders enthusiastically looked forward to the ship coming sooner, so they could hurry and leave this wretched place. Otherwise, they'd even lose their pants from this demoness schemes. Yi Wanwan didn't immediately send a signal. She planned to observe the situation on this island a little longer and ensure everything would go without a hitch before allowing the Nye family and Siyihan to come and rescue her. And, well, she wanted to trick a few more bosses while she was at it. Yi Wanwan's ability to trick people came in all shapes and forms. After He Biao fell victim, other people weren't willing to believe it and tested her out themselves. All of them ended up being tricked until they cried for their parents without any exception. Inside the prison, Yi Wanwan seized the most comfortable throne. On her left, a leader from some gang was miserably holding her tea for her, while on her right, another leader was obediently pouring water for her. All the leaders were steaming with rage and gathered together, whispering with great fervor. Damn, isn't there anyone who can teach this demoness a lesson? Teach her a lesson? If you dare, then go yourself. I won't go. Why? I heard Yi Biao's high blood pressure ramped up again from his fury. So tragic. Across the short table from Yi Wanwan, a leader was drenched in sweat. That's impossible. Shouldn't the last card in your hand be a 3 of hearts? Yi Wanwan wore an arrogant expression. Your vision must have deteriorated in your age, right? Accept your loss gracefully. So many people are watching, so you mustn't try to get away shamelessly, gang leader. At the entrance of an old prison, several leaders were sitting at the entrance like dried sardines and chatting, bored out of their minds, when one of them sharply caught sight of an unfamiliar face nearby. Who are those 2 people over there? I don't think I've seen them, a leader asked suspiciously. Probably some newly captured souls. A leader from another faction turned in the direction of the 2 newcomers, and his eyes abruptly shot open in disbelief. Shit, Lord Azura. Isn't the one on the left Lord Azura? How did he also get captured here? Damn, what did you say? The one on the left is Lord Azura, and the one on the right is his deputy. I've seen them once before, so I'm definitely not mistaken. After disembarking from the boat, Siyihan led Lin K to secretly scout for traces of Yuan Wan, but couldn't find her after searching several districts. He only found her bloody shoes on a beach. As Siyihin held her shoes and stared at the traces of blood on it, his expression was unprecedentedly dark. Lin Ke also panicked slightly. Ninth brother, wait, there's still a district we haven't checked yet. Siyihin's fingers clenched, and he resumed walking. At the entrance of District B's prison cells, the people at the entrance swiftly rushed inside to inform everyone. Damn, damn, damn. Another one is captured. Do you know who got captured this time? Inside, the leaders were all disinterested. Initially, when new people were captured, they still made a few remarks. But as more and more people were captured and their backgrounds turned bigger and bigger, most people were numb to the news already. Who? Why are you so excited? A person asked nonchalantly. Lord Azura. It's Lord Azura. The person at the entrance yelled. Shit. Who? One of prison's 3 heads. The leader of Azura. Lord Azura? That's right. It's him. I've seen him once, so I definitely didn't mistake him. Even Lord Azura was captured here? Just what faction is behind this island? I originally thought it was prison's doing, but even Lord Azura ended up being captured here. Inside a deeper room, Yuan Wan was playing the card game, Zijinhua, when she heard the commotion outside. She offhandedly asked, Why is it so loud outside? Someone by the door responded, Someone new got captured here. Someone new? Aren't nearly all the respected leaders of the independent state captured here? Who else could be captured? Yuan Wan asked with raised brows before languidly taking a sip of the good tea she just won. An excited voice shouted from the crowd, Shit, I think it's Lord Azura. Pa! The second Yuan Wan heard the name, Lord Azura, she instantly spat out her tea. Who did you say? The boss of Azura. The great devil, Lord Azura. Yuan Wan was stupefied. She wasn't prepared at all. Agio. She hadn't sent a signal yet. So why did he come? After Yuan Wan's surprise passed, her second reaction was to look down and inspect herself. Right now, her hair was messy and her clothes were wrinkled. She was wearing a pair of shoes woven from grass, and she was shaking her legs, which were propped on the coffee table, without any care for her image. There were some cards in her hands, while items she tricked out of those bosses were piled in front of her. She wholly embodied a king of the mountain, a bandit. Yuan Wan cursed. Damn. It's over. Why did he come without a moment's notice? I'm not prepared in the slightest. Yuan Wan was akin to an ant on a frying pan, and she quickly put her feet back down and shot up. She scrambled to stuff her cards into the hands of the leader on her left and covered everything on the table with a piece of cloth. Then she swiftly untied her bird's nest hair and combed through it. Yuan Wan had just finished scurrying around when Siyihin stepped inside in his black jacket. He originally planned to wait for the cover of the night before coming to look for her, but he couldn't wait that long. It wasn't until he saw her with his own eyes that he could feel at ease. The first thing Siyihin did when he entered was survey the room, looking for that familiar figure. At the same time, the leaders around the room also each evaluated the man with their own thoughts. This was Lord Azura? Didn't the rumors say Lord Azura's appearance was ugly as a monster? Aren't his looks a bit heaven-defying? Aside from that face, there aren't many differences between him and a monster, right? Everyone present were veterans with battle experience, so they could instinctively detect this person's danger with a single glance. At this moment, a silhouette dashed toward Lord Azura. What's going on? Lord Azura has an archenemy on this island? These enemies were infuriated with a single look and are going to start fighting immediately? Yuan Wan was truly too fast, and even Siyihin didn't have time to react. By the time he could react, a soft warmth filled his arms. Yuan Wan acted like a frightened bunny and pounced toward Siyihin the moment she saw him, burrowing her head into his chest. Siyihin's original vigilant expression disintegrated the instant Yuan Wan leaped into his arms. When he saw her sitting in front of him, completely unharmed, his maniacal and chaotic thoughts finally calmed, and his taut expression also eased. Wan Wan, she was fine. Wah, baby, you're finally here. The island is so scary. Yi Wanwan's voice was both soft and dainty as she pitifully glued herself to see Yihin and started whining tearfully. No one from the observing crowd expected the assailant to be by phone. They watched as this demoness who tricked them to the point of death these past few days abruptly changed her demeanor and flew toward Lord Azura like a cute and helpless-looking damsel in distress. Their chins all dropped. What did they just see? Who just pounced over there? I think it's that demoness. What did she say? The island's really scary? Isn't the scariest thing on this island her? Also, rumors claimed Bro Flattop had an affair with even Lord Azura. But were they not rumors? It was true. This woman dared to pick up even Lord Azura. So, just how scary was she? Si Yihin completely ignored the stunned gazes around him. When he heard Yi Wanwan, his loosened brows instantly wrinkled again, and he immediately took off his jacket, wrapping it around her and pressing her closer into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed the top of her head with extreme gentleness. Don't be afraid. It's fine now. Yi Wanwan patted the top of her head, upset. Damn it, I didn't wash my hair. As she felt the familiar scene and heat enveloping her, warmth filled her heart. She looked up and started complaining coquettishly. Yi Wanwan complained, Baby, I'm telling you, everyone on this island is an extremely vicious and fiendish demon, and they teamed up to bully me. I was scared to death. Baby, you almost missed me. When the leaders, whose eyes had turned dazed from witnessing Yi Wanwan's changed demeanor so abruptly, heard this, they were all dumbfounded and their expressions turned incredulous. What did this demoness say? One of the leaders who just lost the last valuable item in his possession couldn't help but blurt out, say, President Bai, all of us were bullying you? Has your memory gotten mixed up? Weren't you the one bullying us? Si Yihin, Yi Wanwan. Being exposed so instantaneously, Yi Wanwan glared at that leader with a warning before continuing to tattle pitifully and helplessly. It's true. They really were bullying me. Do you know how horrible the big scoundrel from Hong and Gang He Biao was? He actually forced me to bet with him and said I needed to sleep with him if I lost. Si Yihin's expression darkened instantly. Hong and Gang. However, before Si Yihin's rage could explode, the weak voice of 4C's Gates boss was heard from the side. But the end result was that you bet he wouldn't dare to eat shit. So if he wanted to win, he had to eat shit. In the end, he could only admit defeat, and he lost his family's heirloom, the white tiger seal, to you. These past days, his high blood pressure and heart problems have acted up several times. The other righteous leaders also couldn't bear it anymore, and one of them flicked back the cloth covering the low table, revealing Yi Wanwan's treasures. He sorrowfully said accusingly, Look at this yourself. You tricked everything out of us, and you sold our ship tickets to us at a high price. Even a ticket scalper isn't as deceitful as you. Yi Wanwan, would you die if you spoke less? Yi Wanwan protested, Baby, they're slandering me. I am not. I didn't. You have to believe me. Amen, Si Yihin grunted. All the leaders... Shit? Was Lord Azura actually this easy to deceive? This was illogical. These leaders never expected the rumored bloodthirsty and terrifying Lord Azura to be duped so completely by this demoness, and felt their hearts aching with grief. Say, Lord Azura, I'm telling you, you should polish your eyes. Don't be deceived by a certain someone. That's right. Take a good look at the person next to you. This woman simply isn't a person. This by phone is seriously crafty, right? She can dupe even Lord Azura so completely. Yi Wanwan gritted her teeth in anger. These bastards. I'll definitely get you back. However, Sian didn't seem to care about those people's words at all. He peered down at the grass-weave shoes Yi Wanwan was wearing and frowned. Why are you wearing those? My sandals were bad quality, and I accidentally broke them. So I threw them away, Yi Wanwan replied. A leader interjected. Didn't you break them while fighting and kicking someone? That's right, the person you kicked was me. Yi Wanwan took a deep breath and rotated her wrists. Fuck, they're forcing me to attack, right? Before Yi Wanwan lost control and went on a warpath, Si Yihin suddenly retrieved something from the hands of Lin Ke nearby. When he opened the bag, a dress and a pair of brand-new, pink, soft-leathered flats were revealed. Si-Yihin took out the shoes and knelt down. Put them on. After switching to the new pair of shoes, her feet immediately felt relief. Yuan dazedly asked, "And why did you have this?" Lin K interjected from the back. "That's not all. There's also clean clothes, skincare products, makeup, chips, spicy strips, lollipops." Yuan stared at the other bag containing the clothes and necessities. She was so moved that she didn't know what to say. Si-Yihin said, "I came in a hurry, so I could only bring a random outfit. It might not be to your liking. If you don't want to wear it," Yuan immediately refuted. "No way. I like anything you prepared. I'll wear it. I'll wear it." After these past days of trickery and swindling, Yuan managed to get her hands on a single room and hastily led Si-Yihin there to spend some alone time with him. In the end, Lin K was left behind outside and had to listen to the other leaders endlessly rattling off that demoness evil deeds from these past few days. "That demoness seriously isn't a good person. You've got to talk to your lord." That's right. The demoness is best at swindling and tricking people. Exactly. If you don't believe me, ask the people around me. We've been screwed over thousands of times these past days. Lin K. Fucking, why did I rush here with ninth brother in fear of something happening to her? Spooked out of our minds. On the other side, the second Yuan and Si-Yihin entered the room, she was forcefully pulled into Si-Yihin's arms before she could say anything. This embrace clearly expressed his repressed unease and fear. Yuan quickly patted his back with her hand. Sorry, I should have sent you a signal a long time ago, but I hadn't been on the island for too long, so I didn't dare to rashly inform you to come here and risk yourself before uncovering more information about the situation. As long as you're fine, it's good," Si-Yihin replied. "I'm fine. Can't you see I'm perfectly fine?" Yuan exasperatedly asked. "Why did you come running here? It was too risky. What if it was too dangerous?" "There's no what if." Si-Yihin wouldn't even allow a what if. Moreover, if it really was dangerous, that was all the more reason for him to come. Yes, there's no what if. Yuan kissed him on the cheek comfortingly before proceeding to briefly explain the situation on the island to him. "Based on my scouting these past few days, this island is where they've imprisoned all the leaders. This lousy island is in the middle of the sea and doesn't have any reception. Plus, the surrounding terrain is dangerous, so there aren't any routes nearby and ships don't pass by it, allowing it to remain undiscovered. Throwing someone in this lousy place is equivalent to throwing them into an aquatic prison. They wouldn't be able to escape regardless of how capable they were." Yuan sighed and continued. "Moreover, for what I understand, these leaders were left to their own devices after being thrown here and haven't even seen the shadow of a ghost, let alone the person behind this. I really can't figure out why that mastermind captured this many important figures from the independent state and ignored them without interrogating them or beating them. What was their objective for imprisoning them like this?" Si-Yihin's eyes glinted and he asked, "None of you have seen the mastermind?" Yuan nodded. "That's right. There's no one keeping watch over us here on the island." "What is it?" Si-Yihin seemed to have thought of something but didn't say it out loud. "Nothing." Yuan pulled Si-Yihin to sit down on the tiny bed. "Baby, come here. Sit down and rest. I got this private room through trick. It was given to me by a kind leader." Yuan corrected herself while beaming. Si-Yihin surveyed the room as he casually asked, "On the island, did you see him?" Yuan replied as she started to take out the new clothes from the bag. "Huh? Who?" Si-Yihin paused for a moment before answering. "Emperor G." Yuan choked and scratched her head. "Nope, I didn't see him. I actually saw a friend of mine, the boss of Heavenly Owl, Haitang. She told me Emperor G somehow found a method to leave the island already. Before departing, he left a very strange letter for me, but I couldn't figure out what he meant after trying to decipher it for half a day." Si-Yihin furrowed his brows. "Emperor G isn't on the island?" Yuan nodded. Si-Yihin appeared to have thought of something, his expression darkening slightly. It was nearly impossible to leave this island with the strength of one person. He spent a large amount of energy merely to pinpoint this island's location. Furthermore, the geography around this island was extremely complicated and had a lot of undercurrents and reefs. He only managed to successfully arrive on a ship because he hired sailors with decades of experience and had an elaborate plan. Even so, the navigation was extremely risky. However, since Ji Shiran dared to go out to the sea, he most likely had a foolproof plan based on his personality. Seeing that Si Yihin seemed to be contemplating something, Yu Wanwan was afraid his imagination was going wild again and hurried to switch the topic. "Oh right, baby. Do you know who I ran in on the island? You definitely won't guess." Si Yihin knew she was forcefully changing the topic, but didn't expose her. "Who? Your eldest niece, Si Chun." "Ha! I've been led astray by those people. I meant Si Xia. It's Si Xia." Si Yihin was astonished. "Si Xia. That's right. He scared the heck out of me when I saw him. When I saw him running toward me with a hoe, I thought he was going to avenge his dad, but that lad knew his dad had no one to blame but himself, so he didn't make any trouble for me. Otherwise, I would have had to go easy on him. After all, in terms of position in the family hierarchy, I am his ninth aunt-in-law." Si Yihin expressionlessly responded, "No need to go easy." Yi Wanwan wondered, is he Si Xia's real uncle? That lad probably went to go dig holes again. I'll take you to him later. First, I'll bathe and change my clothes. Yi Wanwan quickly took out all the clothes from the bag. Si Yihin was seriously too considerate. He prepared a whole outfit of clean clothes as well as undergarments. Although she could find a place with fresh water to bathe, supplies were scarce, and she didn't have any change of clothes. Let's go. Come with me to take a bath first." "Where do you usually bathe?" Si Yihin asked. "There's a pond in the center of the island." Si Yihin frowned lightly. "Outdoors. There's no other way. It's already good that there's a place to wash up in this lousy place. Don't worry, there isn't anyone suicidal who would dare to peek. Haitang and I were together, so we kept watch for each other. It was super safe." Si Yihin didn't say anything else. The two of them soon reached the bathing spot, and this time, instead of Haitang, her new guard was Si Yihin. After stripping, Yi Wanwan sank her body into the water and leaned against the rocks on the side. She saw that Si Yihin was standing at a perfect distance and holding her clothes for her as he kept watch, his eyes not straying a centimeter. Yi Wanwan clucked her tongue. "Why is my charm lacking? His eyes actually aren't straying a centimeter. At least take a peek." "Ah, baby, don't you think this island would be rather nice if there weren't anyone else here?" Yi Wanwan lay on the side of the lake, a reminiscent expression on her face. "Do you remember? Back then, we always wanted to find a place where no one could find us, a place that only had the two of us, and live there." "I remember," Si Yihin replied. How could he not remember? Yi Wanwan sighed. "Sadly, I don't think that way anymore. I can't live in a place like this with just the two of us." Si Yihin's back abruptly stiffened. "Why?" Yi Wanwan immediately replied. "Because we have baby Tang Dang now. It should be the three of us now." Si Yihin had panicked for no reason. Amen. Seeing that Si Yihin was in her line of sight, Yi Wanwan completely relaxed. These past few days, it seemed like she was wreaking havoc everywhere, but in reality, she merely didn't dare to allow herself a moment of rest. Because the second she rested, she would recall those matters heavy on her heart. Her brother's death, her parents' unknown whereabouts, the person acting behind Nieling Long, and this island that was imprisoning everyone. She needed to uncover everything as soon as possible. "Agio, when can we leave?" Yi Wanwan asked. "Based on the direction of the winds, it will be most suitable in 3 days." "Okay." After bathing, Yi Wanwan put on the dress Si Yihin brought for her. He had prepared a long, very Leda-like style dress in pastel pink. It was so celestial and ethereal, it instantly transformed her from a demoness to a little fairy. Yi Wanwan and Si Yihin returned to the prison. The room was originally a loud ruckus, but instantly quieted the instant Yi Wanwan appeared at the entrance. Everyone's heads simultaneously shot up. The girl had skin fair as snow and hair hanging down her back. She was in a long dress and standing by the door elegantly like a lotus flower breaking the surface. This face. Isn't this the Demoness? Shit. The room was deadly silent for some time before a leader released a world-shaking scream and slipped down from the bench in his shock. At the same time, the brother next to him was shaking and fell in the air, while someone else on the other side of the room knocked over the storage rack, producing a giant boom and dust storm. The prison turned into chaos, a ripple of gasps reverberating throughout the room. Everyone stared at Yi Wan like they'd seen a ghost. They weren't this shocked even when they were tricked by Yi Wan into stripping to their underpants. Fuck, this is by phone? Am I seeing things? But that's by Feng's face. What's the fuss over nothing? She simply changed her clothes. Freaking, the problem isn't the fuss. The main point is where the heck did she get her new clothes from? That's right. I've never seen these kind of clothes in the storehouse. Could they have been brought in from the outside? Everyone was talking at once. President Bai, about the ship, we've paid the fee, a leader hastily said to Yi Wan. By phone, you've taken our money, so if there isn't a ship or you don't take us, you have to refund us 100 times the original cost. Upon hearing this, Siyin glanced at Yi Wan. Yi Wan, ahem, what's the hurry? Any more squeaks from you, and you're disqualified. Yi Wan snorted. Yi Wan turned to the man next to her. Ajio, look, they're teaming up to bully me. Siyin. Everyone was dumbfounded at that. It didn't miss here, right? Team up to bully her? Bully? Just who in the world was freaking bullying whom? They bought tickets for the ship, but they still had to freaking act like servants. Just who was the buyer and who was the seller? All right, enough nonsense. Make preparations in these next 2 days and wait for my instructors to act. Also, whoever leaks out the news won't be able to leave at that time, and they will be everyone's enemy. You reap what you sow. Also, monitor each other between yourselves and make sure it'll be absolutely safe. After resolving the matter with the ship tickets, Yi Wan led Siyin away and found Haidang and Wen Xiren to discuss the plan for departure in 3 days. Later that night, inside a simple and crude house on the edge of the island, Xia was sound asleep with his arms around a rock, snores occasionally breaking the silence. Someone easily opened the door and slipped inside. When the newcomer saw Xia sound asleep, a cold glint surfaced in their eyes, and their lips curled up with an icy, meaningful smile. The newcomer was holding a piece of rope and slowly walked towards Xia, stopping next to him. They pulled the rope around Xia's neck, seeming to want to choke him to death with it. However, when the visitors saw the hoe nearby, they appeared to change their mind immediately and tossed the rope aside, gently picking up the hoe. Hee, punk, don't resent me. If you want to blame something, blame your own misfortune. As the visitor spoke, they clutched the hoe and aimed it at Xia before ruthlessly hacking it towards Xia without any hesitation. The amount of force wasn't light. Forget about a person's head, but even a large piece of rock would have probably been smashed to bits. At that moment, Xia suddenly turned over and the hoe missed. Damn, punk, your luck is good, but what's the point of living an extra 30 seconds? The person snorted and didn't stop their attack, striking Xia's head again. What depressed the visitor was that this punk managed to dodge both fatal blows successively. Oomph. The visitor snorted. They returned the hoe to its spot and picked up the thick rope they tossed aside earlier. A second later, the visitor knelt over Xia, firmly locking him in place so that he couldn't move before wrapping the neck in their hand around Xia's neck. Ha ha ha. Punk, let me see if you're lucky again this time. Turn around again. How will you freaking turn now? The visitor was dressed in black, and their face was covered by a makeshift piece weaved from the plants and flowers on this island. Their laugh was immensely unbridled and dramatic. Let's see if I can choke you, little bastard, to death today. The person snorted and pulled with both hands, harshly choking Xia's neck. This very instant, Xia's closed eyes shot open. Damn, who are you? Xia was stunned when he saw the person in black crouched above him. Hee, little darling, I'm Heibai Wuchang 1. I came here for your life. The visitor answered with a chilly chuckle. Hey, Bai Wuchang. Where's Bai Wuchang then? Xia retorted almost immediately, not seeming to have woken up completely yet. Your grandfather Bai Wuchang is waiting for you in the underworld, the person in black shouted harshly. Big brother, don't kill me, brother, Xia yelled. Let's talk properly. However, the visitor didn't waste their words with Xia and used more force in tightening the rope around him, intent on choking him to death. Xia's face swelled with blood. He pushed the person off of him and took the chance to flee from the room. Let's see where you'll run. The person chuckled. They immediately pursued Xia. Before Xia could run more than a few steps outside, the person in black caught up to him and blocked his path. Just what grievances and hostilities do you have with me? Xia asked the person in the back. Enough rubbish. The person in black snorted and ruthlessly struck Xia with the hoe they brought from the house. Xia reacted rather fast and dodged in time. Soon, the person in black dashed towards Xia and choked him by the neck. Xia's arms swung madly in apparent panic, and his eyes turned bloodshot. Die! The person in black shouted coldly. At that moment, Xia finally stopped moving and viciousness appeared in his bloodshot eyes. I'm rather curious. Xia stared at the mysterious person. Just who are you? Why are you here to take my life for no reason? As Xia spoke, he gently tapped his finger. The mysterious person immediately released Xia like they were struck by lightning and staggered backward. Punk, I didn't expect you to have hidden so deeply. The person in black examined Xia for a few seconds and turned to leave. Since you're here, it won't be so easy for you to leave now. What do you say? The corners of Xia's lips curled up with a nefarious smile. Xia was extremely fast and grabbed the person in black by the back of their clothes almost instantly. The person in black turned around at once, and both of them reached for the other person simultaneously. It's you. Xia snatched the mask, concealing the face of the person in black, and turned pensive when a pretty and sweet face was exposed. This woman was none other than the leader of Heavenly Owl, Haitang. As for Haitang, she was attacking randomly, but accidentally scratched off a piece of skin underneath Xia's eyes. To put it precisely, this piece of skin didn't belong to Xia or any living creature. This was a piece of manufactured skin used to disguise someone's face and was very, very thin. The tactile feeling in one's hands was very soft and no different than human skin. If this coincidence hadn't happened, who would have expected this to be underneath Xia's eye? A scar that had been hidden for who knew how long underneath Xia's eye was revealed. When it was paired with his nefarious smile, it would make one shiver unwittingly. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU come, tell me, why do you want to kill me? Xia questioned chillingly. Haidang didn't say anything as she looked at Xia. Since you won't talk, then never speak again. Xia snorted. He seemed to have the speed of a gale and seized the escaping Haidang. In his right hand was the hoe. Xia slammed the hoe toward Haitang's head. Haidang frowned deeply. Xia's strength completely exceeded her expectations. He was seriously too fast, and Haidang could even feel the wind produced from the hoe slashing across the air. Suddenly, a figure flashed between the two people. Bam! A giant noise rang out. Yuan blocked Haidang and caught the hoe. Haidang was most likely sent there by Yuan to purposely test him. President of the Martial Arts Union, long time no see. A comment came from Yuan when she saw the ferocious scar at the corner of Xia's eyes. The Martial Arts Union's president, Haidang stared at Xia in shock. Xia was actually the president of the Martial Arts Union. Yuan was initially only suspicious about all the abnormalities that Xia displayed, but never expected Xia to be the president of the Martial Arts Union. She was simply too familiar with this scar. It was caused by the claws of a wild wolf. Xia stared at Yuan and mulled over his thoughts for a long time before the corners of his lips turned up. His hoarse voice rang out. Ah, worryless Nya, you really are very smart. If you came here to test me yourself, I would be able to determine your figure with one look, so You had this woman come and test me. Not bad. You've improved. Yuan shook her head. I've long since heard that the president of the martial arts union skills in disguise are unparalleled in this world, so it'd simply be too easy for you to hide a mere scar. However, Xia, I didn't expect it to be you. You really know how to surprise me. Interesting, worryless, yeah, very interesting, but I'm still very curious. I thought I hid flawlessly, so how did you discover me? Xia asked. Can you tell me? Flawlessly? You thought your disguise was flawless. Yuan couldn't help but snort. Just who gave him the confidence? He was clearly full of mistakes, but thought he was flawless. Xia, I have to say that you disguise yourself very ingeniously as a whole, including our interactions in China. Unfortunately, you solely focused on the whole and overlooked too many details, Yuan once said. Details? Xia was pensive. Of course, you have to consider every single little detail when facing a woman, or else every woman can act like Sherlock Holmes. Yuan responded. I'm all ears, Xia said with a snort. There's no harm in telling you. I'll make you accept your defeat graciously. Yuan nodded in assent. In China, do you still remember how you once called me sister? That's the first thing. The second thing was when you, me, and Agio dined at a restaurant one time, and you and Agio both guessed my likes and dislikes. On the surface, Agio won and guessed everything correctly while you didn't guess a single thing correctly. Haitang looked confused, not knowing what Yuan wanted to say. Guessing incorrectly. Was there something wrong with that? Xia asked. There wasn't anything wrong with that before, but after my memory partially recovered, I realized in truth you were the one who answered everything correctly, Yuan replied. To put plainly, what Agio guessed was everything that Yuan liked, while what you guessed was everything that worryless Nye liked. Yuan's eyes coldly glinted. Back then, Siyin did guess everything correctly, but her preferences were ones she adopted after becoming Yuan. As for Xia, he guessed worryless Nye's preferences correctly. When Yuan recovered her memories and recalled this matter, she found it very strange. Xia mockingly smiled at Yuan. So what? Me being able to guess worryless Nye's likes and dislikes could have been a mere coincidence. Even if it wasn't a coincidence, you couldn't have determined I'm the president of the martial arts union simply based on that, right? Indeed, you're right. Yuan nodded. If that was merely everything, it naturally couldn't prove Xia was the president of the martial arts union. When Yuan first recovered her memories, she was confused as to how Xia was able to guess worryless Nye's preferences, but never linked Xia to the martial arts union. Xia's biggest flaw occurred on this island. Based on what you said previously, even if you weren't the president of the martial arts union and weren't connected to the martial arts union, you should have still known my identity. But your performance on this island was seriously too terrible. Yuan continued. First of all, you were captured the moment you entered the independent state. So how could you have heard of me? Even if you'd really heard of the president of the Fearless Alliance, by phone, how could you have known that by phone was Yuan? I don't think we've met before, right? Xia mulled over Yuan's words before replying. Indeed. You do really care about the details. Second of all, you said you were imprisoned on this island because of the ancient Sea clan. Unfortunately, Agio also came to the island. I asked Agio about you, but he refuted your story. The Sea clan has been peaceful and calm recently, and nobody by the name of Xia paid them a visit. Aside from that, the Sea clan didn't send you here, Yuan said. Xia smiled faintly. That's right. Siyin abruptly coming to the island wasn't within my expectations or control. In summary, after coming to the island, you found the storehouse too. How coincidental. Tell me, all the people on the island couldn't find it this whole time, but a newcomer like you found it? Was that really a coincidence? Yuan questioned. When you put it that way, my performance really was full of flaws. Xia smiled. If it was me who came to test you, it would have been as you said, and you would have seen through my physique, so I specifically asked Sister Haitang to test you. Overall, the results were good. I don't recall the Xia in my memories having such frightening martial arts skills, Yuan said, especially since Haidang coincidentally ripped off the mask by the corner of Xia's eyes, revealing the scar bestowed on him by a wild wolf. TSK, what a pity your memory doesn't seem to have completely recovered. Where's the fun in that? Worryless nya? Xia smiled meaningfully. Enough rubbish. I'm also very curious as to why you came after me and tried to kill me back then. What I'm more curious about is why you infiltrated China's Xi family after hunting after me, and even Agio didn't know you were the president of the Martial Arts Union. Xia, you've hidden rather deeply indeed, Yuan said. Why did I hunt after you? Do you need to hear that from me? Xia asked with a smile. Before Yuan could answer, Xia continued. However, I can clear up other matters for you. Other matters? Yuan frowned faintly. Xia closed his eyes, the past surfacing in his mind. When he was young, the personality of his father, Xi Bai, changed drastically because he was expelled from the independent state. Later, Xi Bai returned to China's Xi family to accumulate power in waiting. Xia was born in China and grew up in China's Xi family and originally didn't have that many complications in his life. This world appeared rather wonderful at first. However, Xi Bai treated him more and more strictly, more and more harshly, and trained him inhumanely nearly every day. He once asked Xi Bai why, and Xi Bai's answer was that Xia was his only hope for returning to the independent state and the ancient Xi clan. Finally, Xia learned about the independent state and the world beyond his world. However, at that time, he didn't want to go to the independent state or become anyone's hope. His biggest wish was for less training and to have a small world of his own like his peers. However, all of that was an extravagant wish. He vaguely recalled the year his father brought him to the independent state. This place that held some similarities to China, but was also a different foreign land. He still remembered how Xi Bai brought him to the ancient Xi clan with a heart full of hope, telling the ancient Xi clan that his son was a genius and hoped the ancient Xi clan would forget about the past and allow him to return to the ancient Xi clan since he brought a genius back. After that, the ancient Xi clan conducted all sorts of tests on Xia. Intelligence, martial arts talent, etc., etc. But Xia bore resentments against his father, Xi Bai, and intentionally didn't cooperate in every manner possible. As a result, the test results ended with Xia not reaching the standards for both intelligence and martial arts talent. The ancient Xi clan expelled Xi Bai from the clan again. It was autumn at that time, and the independent state was covered in snow already. In his raging fury, Xi Bai tossed Xi Bai to some mountain, allowing him to perish on his own. As Yuan listened to Xia's narration, she finally understood why she ran into Xia in the mountains back then. It was a coincidence that led to Grandpa rescuing Xia. Xia, you're truly an ingrate. Yuan snorted at Xia. Back then, on that mountain, Grandpa and I rescued you from the fangs of a wolf. Not only did you not pay us back, but you did this kind of thing. Xia's gaze landed on Yuan, and he chuckled lightly. 1 second. I'm not done telling my story yet. It wasn't until later that Xia learned the elderly man who rescued him was the president of the Martial Arts Union, and that young girl was the president's granddaughter. Every day, he followed the elderly man. The elderly man treated him extremely strictly, but it was different from the strictness of his father, Xi Bai. He could feel the warmth from this type of strictness. At some point in time, he started considering the president of the Martial Arts Union as his real grandfather and that girl as his real elder sister. He once swore that he absolutely wouldn't allow anyone to harm them, regardless of who it was. No one. Xi Bai seemed to have lost his ambitions and became an ordinary person. When he saw Xia, he sobbed and wept, expressing his remorse to Xia. However, Xia understood that Xi Bai had many informants in the independent state, and Xi Bai was weeping most likely because he knew Xia was now the right-hand man of the Martial Arts Union's president. Neither Xia nor Xi Bai addressed the elephant in the room. Xia returned to the Xi residence merely because he wanted to see his grandmother, so he didn't want to delve into Si Bai's business. It was during that time that Si Xia met his ninth uncle, Si Yihan. Si Yihan, the youngest genius of the independent states Si clan. As a member of the martial arts union, Si Xia naturally knew about his ninth uncle's second identity as Lord Azura of Azura. Back then, Si Xia mused that mere China contained many hidden dragons. As a member of the martial arts union, especially since he was the president's right hand, his identity was naturally concealed flawlessly. Even his ninth uncle didn't know his true identity. Although Si Yihan investigated him and sent people to track him, he naturally found nothing in China. After spending a long time with his grandmother and the Si family, Si Xia returned to the independent state again. After you returned to the independent state, you launched a hunt after me, usurped my grandpa's position, and became the president of the martial arts union. Yuanwan coldly looked at Si Xia. Si Xia's lips turned up. It was rather coincidental now that you mention it. After I returned to the independent state, Si Yihan also returned to the independent state. What was more coincidental was that he actually rescued you at the last minute. You know what's more hilarious? I was sitting in the car, but Si Yihan didn't recognize me. Yi Wanwan's fist clenched. So Ajio didn't know about your identity this whole time. After Ajio and I went to China, you openly used your identity as Si Xia to go back as well and monitor our every move. That's precisely why you know my preferences and incidentally call me sister. Ha! Your reasoning is commendable, Si Xia said. You and your father, Si Bai, are truly father and son. Both of you are talented actors. Forget about other people. Both you and your father have been acting this whole time with each other, Yuan Wan continued. Of course. Si Xia smiled faintly. Since Si Bai was willing to act with me, I'd naturally cooperate with him. Every day, I had to watch him pretend to be wrecked with nerves at the Si residence every day and act terrified that Si Yihan would kill him. It was disgusting. He merely wanted me to be honest with him so that he could borrow my power to attack Si Yihan. But why would I? Si Bai was also my enemy. No? Si Xia, where in the world is my grandpa right now? Yuan Wan shouted harshly. Where's grandpa? Si Xia donned a contemplative look. Let me think. If you don't speak the truth today, don't think about leaving this island. Worryless Nya, are you scaring me? I'm so scared. Si Xia smiled devilishly. But after thinking about it, it's fine even if I tell you. In truth, why are you asking me where your grandpa is? You should ask yourself instead. Yuan Wan frowned deeper. Just what are you trying to say, Si Xia? Ha ha. What I'm trying to say, worryless Nya, didn't you kill your grandpa with your own hands? HM. The coldness in Si Xia's eyes flashed stormily. Haidang took a step forward and said to Yuan Wan, if you don't have this segment of memory, don't believe him. Before Yuan Wan could speak, Haidang continued. You know the friendship we had before, worryless. We know each other very well. If you really killed your grandpa with your own hands like he said, there's no way news of it wouldn't get out. Don't believe him. Only after that did Yi Wanwan's complexion improve slightly. Indeed, she currently didn't possess this memory segment, so what really happened couldn't solely depend on Si Xia's words. She killed her grandpa simply because Si Xia said so? What absurd joke was that? You still won't tell the truth, huh? Yi Wanwan's gaze turned colder as she stared at Si Xia. Worryless Nya. Your ambitions were truly too great. You wanted to rule the entire independent state. You want to stomp everything beneath your feet. However, your grandfather was the president of the martial arts union, so he stopped you. However, you lost your most basic humanity and killed your grandfather with your own hands. Am I right? Si Xia snorted. Stop spouting nonsense. Haidang yelled at him angrily. Haidang knew worryless Nya very well. If worryless Nya really possessed this ambition, she could have just stayed in the martial arts union since she would eventually take over as the president of the martial arts union. Why would she need to create the Fearless Alliance? Could it be that the power of the martial arts union's president was less than that of the Fearless Alliance's president? Si Xia, you are really full of lies. Yuan didn't care about Si Xia's words anymore. So great that she would resort to killing her own grandpa and stomp the entire independent state beneath her feet. Just take a look at the members of the Fearless Alliance. Big Dipper, Third Elder, those Hall Masters and Elders. Which one of them was freaking reliable? Dominate and rule over the independent state? With what? With a mere Fearless Alliance? Moreover, in the memories Yi Wanwan recalled, there wasn't a single piece or detail that portrayed her desire to rule over the independent state. Hence, what Xia was saying was purely complete nonsense to confuse her. Oh, so you didn't want to rule over the independent state? Then I'm really curious why you would kill Grandpa. Could it be because Grandpa prohibited you from being with Ziyin, so you harbored resentment and killed him? Xia smiled faintly. Worryless, listen to this. He's simply uttering nonsense and is trying to mess with your mind. Don't be tricked, Haitang said to Yi Wanwan. Sister Haitang, I know. Yi Wanwan nodded at the other woman. Yi Wanwan then turned to Xia and shouted, Xia, stop spouting bullshit. If you won't tell the truth today, don't think about leaving. To Yi Wanwan, it was probably Xia who wanted to overthrow her grandfather and usurp his position to stand at the top of the independent state's power pyramid. Then he wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate its roots, so he hunted after her. If that was really it, everything would be explained perfectly. Ha! Worryless Nya, aren't you very detail-oriented and talented with logic and reasoning? Then think about this carefully. What happened in between all this? Do you not have this segment of memory because you can't remember it or because you're unwilling to remember it? Who is the true demon? Is it you? Xia smiled faintly at that. Worryless Nya, do you really think you can rescue the people on this island? In reality, are you actually saving people or are you killing people? Before Yi Wanwan could respond, Xia's figure flickered and melded into the dark. He disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Worryless, what has happened? Haidang asked Yi Wanwan after Xia left. Yi Wanwan seemed to be familiar with the president of the martial arts union. Yi Wanwan shook her head. This matter was too complicated and couldn't be explained in a few words. We need to find Xia, Yi Wanwan said. All right, Haitang agreed. Yi Wanwan and Haitang immediately combed the perimeters of the island in search of Xia. However, this island was too large, and they were unable to find Xia. Haitang, keep this matter a secret for now, so we don't affect everyone's morale. Yi Wanwan instructed Haitang before they parted ways. If everyone knew the president of the martial arts union was on the island, and knew they were about to escape the island. I understand. Haitang nodded. The next morning, Yi Wanwan sought out Ziyin and told him everything that happened last night with Xia. When Ziyin heard the story, he didn't appear very surprised. Ajio, don't tell me you knew Xia was the president of the martial arts union a long time ago. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows. The man shook his head. I didn't. Why are you so calm if you didn't know then? That's your real nephew. I already told you back in China to not trust him. Ziyin looked at her. What do you know? Yi Wanwan asked curiously. I once looked into him, Ziyin answered after a moment of thought. He frequently enters and leaves the independent state, but I was unable to discover his true identity despite the resources at my disposal. Ziyin was suspicious of and took precautions against Xia long ago, so he wasn't surprised after learning that Xia was the president of the martial arts union. Moreover, Ziyin was well aware of how Bai brought Xia back to the independent state years ago and used Xia as a bargaining chip to return to the ancient Xi clan, but Xia didn't pass the exams. Ziyin never cared about Bai, but his nephew, Xia, concealed himself very deeply. What should we do now? Xia knows about our plans, so Yi Wanwan was somewhat concerned. Ziyin wasn't worried about this, though, and replied, This island masks all signals completely, and all communication devices are nulled. It takes 2 days to return to the independent state from this island, so even if Xia knows about our plan and wants to stop it, he can't do it in time. Only then were Yi Wanwan's worries assuaged. Soon, 3 days had passed. Yi Wanwan and many leaders acted according to the plan and lit the entire island on fire. It wasn't long before heavy smoke enveloped the island. Say, by phone, you better not harm us. If a ship doesn't come, we'll all be suffocated to death. Yuan wasn't concerned, though. She accepted the ship ticket money already, so how could there be no ship? Not long after the island was set aflame, dozens of ships appeared in the sea. Ships from Azura, the Fearless Alliance, and the Nye family thickly dotted the distance. The guards the martial arts union placed around the island were scattered within several rounds of attacks. Although the martial arts union didn't place many guards around the island, they weren't weak. However, they couldn't withstand the surprise attack from 3 strong groups and were completely overwhelmed in terms of numbers alone. The process went smoother than Yuan expected. Every prisoner on this island successfully boarded a ship and escaped from this island. After returning to the independent state, they didn't launch a crusade against the martial arts union, though. Everyone was unusually tacit in remaining quiet. Even the Fearless Alliance didn't retaliate against the martial arts union in any way and didn't interrogate them in any manner. The return of the missing leaders evoked a major ripple in the independent state and caused Yuan to become the most frequently discussed topic of every resident's conversation. The nefarious president of the Fearless Alliance actually discovered where the leaders were imprisoned and rescued them. This was a hot topic. As for the martial arts union, they didn't respond in any way, as though they were ignorant of this matter. For these returning leaders, their biggest priority was to rebuild their strength in the independent state and recuperate for a while. No one was foolish enough to condemn the martial arts union as soon as they escaped from the island. Moreover, none of them had concrete evidence that proved it was the martial arts union who imprisoned them. After returning to the independent state, Yuan rested for 2 days before visiting the Ling residence. In the Ling residence living room, an austere, elderly man's gaze landed on Yuan, affection filling his eyes. Worryless, come to Grandpa. The elderly man waved his hand at Yuan. Yuan obediently nodded and sat down next to the elderly man. This elderly man was the patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Shichong, and he was Yuan's grandfather. Worryless, is there any news of your parents? Ling Shichong asked Yuan after a long silence. No, Grandpa. Yuan shook her head. The Nye family, Azura, and the Fearless Alliance had dispatched a lot of people to search for Patriarch Nye and Madame Nye, but they were still empty-handed. Yuan previously thought Patriarch Nye and Madame Nye might have been captured to the island, but she didn't discover any traces of them after entering the island herself. Hence, Yuan hypothesized that there was a great possibility her parents were in the hands of the direct line. Of course, this was mere conjecture and wasn't proved. Then the Ling family will also join the search, Ling Shichong said after some time. Yuan's eyes brightened. The Ling family's intelligence network was immensely extraordinary. If the Ling family joined, worryless, Grandpa has heard about what happened to you, including your time in China and Lord Azura. Ling Shichong abruptly changed the topic. Grandpa missed you and your brother greatly these past years, but you should know about the situation with me and your parents. Yuan's eyes dimmed several degrees at the mention of nameless Nye. All right, worryless, where's your brother? Nameless Nye's matter wasn't publicized, and the Nye family locked down the information immediately, so even the Ling family was clueless. All right, when your brother's back, have him come to the Ling residence too, Ling Shichong instructed. Okay. Yuan nodded. All right, what's the story behind the island? Who was the culprit? Ling Shichong continued his line of inquiry. Yuan mulled over it for a moment before deciding to tell Ling Shichong the whole story. It was the martial arts union. Ling Shichong frowned upon learning the truth. What you're saying is that the boy your grandfather rescued back then is the current president of the martial arts union? I will thoroughly investigate this matter. Ling Shichong looked grim. The independent state might not be able to maintain its peace soon. Grandpa, what do you mean? Yuan was surprised. While you were on the island, the direct line announced it'll start a war with the independent state's collateral branch, and it started to make allies with all the major factions in the independent state, Ling Shichong replied. The direct line announced it would start a war with the independent state. Yuan really didn't know about this matter. All right, Grandpa, How is the collateral branch differentiated from the direct line? Yuan asked Ling Shichong. To put it plainly, the collateral branch and the direct line are the descendants of the seniors who first inhabited the independent state. The major clans like the ancient Si clan and the ancient Jiang clan are considered the collateral branch. The direct line was once ancient clans from the independent state, but after the great battle between the direct line and the collateral branch, the direct line was defeated and expelled from the independent state by the collateral branch, Ling Shichong explained. Then are the four great clans considered the direct line or collateral branch? Yuan inquired. Ling Shichong smiled faintly. Worryless. Us four great clans are neither considered the collateral branch, nor are we related to the direct line. It isn't just the four great clans. Aside from the ancient clans, none of the factions in the independent state are members of the collateral branch or the direct line. Yuan finally obtained a rough understanding of the collateral branch and the direct line. To put it plainly, this was completely a war between the ancient clans and didn't have anything to do with them. Since it was unrelated to them, they could let them fight if they wanted. It wasn't like it would affect the rest of them. The worst scenario was the collateral branch being kicked out. Grandpa, since it doesn't have anything to do with us, why should we get involved? Yuan asked in incomprehension. It does have something to do with us. Ling Shichong explained. The direct line emphasizes governance while the collateral branch emphasizes balance. If the independent state is controlled by the direct line, it wouldn't be a good thing. Realization dawned on Yuan after her grandfather's explanation. After carefully thinking about it, the strongest factions in the independent state were definitely the ancient clans right now. However, as Ling Shichong said, the ancient clans emphasized balance, so they would never manage business between the other factions, let alone interfere or favor one side. To put it precisely, the ancient clans were responsible for the rules and structure of the independent state, while the martial arts union was responsible for executing those rules and structures. The other factions were just various residents. Grandpa, who do you think has a greater chance of winning in the battle between the direct line and the collateral branch this time? Yuan inquired. Is the direct line really that strong? Why were they expelled from the independent state by the collateral branch back then? Yuan couldn't understand. During the war between the direct line and the collateral branch back then, luck actually factored into the collateral branch's win. Furthermore, the direct line currently has a major helper, piece of shit, Ling Shichong said. At the mention of piece of shit, Yuan's expression became surprised. Indeed, Ishuehan appeared to have some deep enmity with those ancient clans. Grandpa, just what happened between piece of shit, the direct line, and the collateral branch? Yuan pressed. I'm not certain about that. Isn't Tang piece of shit's disciple? You can ask Tang about this matter, Ling Shichong suggested. After eating lunch with Ling Shichong, Yuan returned to the Fearless Alliance headquarters. In these past 2 days, Tang had been staying at the Fearless Alliance so she could ask Tang. Currently, inside Yuan's office in the Fearless Alliance, 7-Star and Big Dipper were crowded around when Xiren, and Big Dipper was especially overjoyed. Brother Xiren, you're finally back. Without you, the Fearless Alliance was a tiger without its wings and a male eagle without its eyes, Big Dipper rattled on. 7-Star shot Big Dipper a look. A male eagle without its eyes. He was such a good conversationalist. When Xiren merely smiled, showing no care regarding Big Dipper's description. What are you all talking about? Yuan asked as she pushed the door open and entered. Sis Feng, you're back. Visit website, our list novel. Come. They walked up to her immediately. Xiao Feng, while I was gone, you've taken good care of the Fearless Alliance, when Xiren commented with a smile. The old Fearless Alliance solely relied on these two pillars. One was President Fearless, by Feng, while the other person was Wen Xiren, and neither person was dispensable. Relying on those elders and hall masters was obviously improbable. In the entire Fearless Alliance, only First Elder and 7-Star were on the normal side, an incontestable point. Before Yuan could speak, when Xiren suddenly said, people from the direct line came this morning. What? Yuan was dumbfounded. People from the direct line visited the Fearless Alliance? That's right. Sis Fong, an old man, came this morning. He was a member of the direct line. If I didn't see how old and infirmed he was, I would have kicked him to the ground, Big Dipper grumbled. Brother Zyron, why did members of the direct line visit the Fearless Alliance? Yuan asked when Zyron. Since you weren't here, I didn't talk long with them and sent them away. They should be back again soon, when Zyron replied. Got it. Yuan nodded. She was rather curious why members of the direct line came here. After chatting with Zyron and the other two, Yuan went to find Tang Tang. The Fearless Alliance's 13th floor. Tang Tang was currently lying on Great White's stomach, while Virus kept yawning with his head lowered on Tong Tong's left. The drowsy Tang Tang was invigorated the second he saw Yuan entering the room. Tang Tang, if you don't read more books, Mommy will send you to school, Yuan said to Tang Tang. Tang Tang has been reading. Tang Tang objected. Tang Tang, you definitely don't want to become uneducated like your Uncle Big Dipper when you grow up, right? Yuan asked. All right, Tang Tang, Mommy has a question for you. Yuan pulled Tang Tang in her arms and sat down on the sofa. What is it, Mommy? Tang Tang asked curiously. Do you know the story with your master, Ishuehan? Do you know why your master hates the members of the ancient clan so much? Yuan inquired. Although Yuan knew Ishuehan had a tremendous conflict with those ancient clans of the independent state, she didn't know about the origin of the conflict. Yuan didn't think Ishuehan's hatred against the ancient clans was that simple either. The independent state had 5 major ancient clans. There were the ancient Sea clan, the ancient Yin clan, the ancient Hua clan, the ancient Jiang clan, and the ancient Yin clan. Ishuehan didn't hate a single specific ancient clan. He hated all of the ancient clans. Mommy, I know a little, Tang Tang responded after a moment of thought. Yuan's eyes brightened. She originally just wanted to give it a try and didn't expect Tang Tang to really have gossip to share. Tang Tang, tell Mommy, Yuan said happily. But, Mommy, Master doesn't like other people knowing about his story, Tang Tang said. It appeared Ishuehan really had some sort of history behind him, and he didn't want other people to know about it. However, the more Tang Tang acted like this, the more curious Yuan was. Tang Tang, your master is right. You mustn't tell other people. Otherwise, if your master finds out, he'll definitely be unhappy. Yuan paused and smiled at Tang Tang. But that's for other people. Is Mommy other people? Tang Tang finally nodded and spilled everything he knew to Yuan. This story had to start from the war between the direct line and the collateral branch. Ishuehan's mother was originally a member of the direct line, but she was merely an ordinary woman and cut ties with the direct line when she was young, moving to live on the fringes of the independent state. After the war between the direct line and the collateral branch erupted, it persisted for many years until the direct line was defeated and expelled from the independent state by the collateral branch. If you wanted to hear my story, why didn't you ask me directly? As Yuan became entranced with the story, an aloof male voice came from behind her. Damn, you scare me to death. Yuan seriously jolted in fright when she saw Ishuehan entering suddenly, guilt crawling up on her. Master, Tang Tang called. Why are you here, knight errant? Yuan stared at the man before her, stunned. I came to see my disciple, Ishuehan replied. What? You seem very interested in my story? Ishuehan asked her. No way. I was just curious about the relationship between you and the direct line, Knight Errant E, and why you hate the ancient clan so much, Yuan answered with a smile. The corners of Ishuehan's lips turned up with an inexplicable smile. The origin of everything. Back then, he hadn't entered the independent state yet and was living south of the independent state. He lived an ordinary life with his mother, depending on each other for survival. That girl's appearance splashed strokes across his life. Yuan keenly listened to Ishuehan's recount with relish. Having the protagonist himself tell the story added a better flavor to it. That girl became your girlfriend? Yuan asked Ishuehan. Moreover, right now, That girl didn't appear to be by Ishuin's side anymore. That girl later moved into Ishuin's home and lived with Ishuehan and his mother. Until one day, Ishuehan went out. When he returned home, he saw his mother dead on the dining table, lethally poisoned, and the girl was lifelessly sitting on a stool. Under Ishuin's intense interrogation, the girl finally spoke the truth. In truth, she had poisoned the food already, and this lethal poison was originally reserved for Ishuehan. However, at the last moment, the girl hesitated and intended to throw away the poisoned dishes. Unfortunately, Ishuihin's mother coincidentally consumed the poisoned food and died. Yuanwan couldn't help but shiver after hearing that. After carefully thinking about it, every time Ishuihan ate a meal, he needed to carefully examine the food, as though he was afraid of it being poisoned. It turned out it was this incident that left behind an indelible shadow in Ishuihin's heart. What happened to that girl? Yuanwan stared at Ishuihan, wanting to know the ending. I killed her, Ishuihan replied aloofly. Yuanwan sank into contemplation. It'd be better if she listened to these types of stories less often. On second thought, Yuanwan realized something was amiss. What did this have to do with Ishuihan antagonizing the collateral branch? Could it be that girl was a member of the collateral branch? Later, Yuanwan learned that the girl really was a member of the collateral branch. Back then, the collateral branch found out about Ishuihan and knew Ishuihin's mother belonged to the direct line. The collateral branch was worried Ishuihan would join the direct line's camp, so they picked a well-trained assassin from their elites, and that girl was the chosen assassin. Yuanwan was rendered speechless by Ishuihin's recount. Wasn't this too melodramatic? So don't you think those ancient clans all deserve to die? Ishuihan asked as he looked at her. Yuanwan shook her head, dumbfounded. Not necessarily. Not necessarily? Ishuihan frowned lightly. Hard to say. Yuanwan rubbed her chin. Really can't say. Yuanwan sighed. How should she say this? Although the collateral branch really was terrible based on Ishuihin's narration, and those ancient clans did deserve the hate. But Yuanwan realized a fact. Her man, Siyihin, was also a freaking member of the ancient clans. So how should she respond? Should she tell Ishuihan, the collateral branch deserves to die, and I'll support you in your quest to eliminate those ancient clans? In her mind, Yuanwan did disdain the ancient clan's methods, but she couldn't vocalize anything. She really couldn't find a single refutable reason regarding his desire to destroy those ancient clans. Forget about Ishuihan. If Yuanwan was in his shoes, she would have probably done the exact same thing Ishuihan did. Aside from visiting Tang Tang, I came here today to remind you, don't carelessly interfere in the business between the collateral branch and the direct line, Ishuihan advised. You're definitely going to take action, right? Yuanwan asked with a frown. The battle between the direct line and the collateral branch is unrelated to me. I merely have private grievances against those ancient clans, Ishuihan replied indifferently. That's unrelated to me, Ishuihan aloofly replied. However, based on the current situation, a battle is unavoidable. Yuanwan sighed helplessly. It appeared the independent state was about to bid peace farewell. After Ishuihan left, Big Dipper opened the door and said, Sis Feng, that old geezer is here again. Which old geezer? Yuanwan glanced at him. That old geezer from the direct line, the one who visited this morning, Big Dipper explained. All right, I'll be right there. Yuanwan nodded. Yuanwan was very intrigued by the direct line's sudden visit too. Just what was the direct line's goal? Mommy, I also want to go. Tang Tang spoke up. Be good, Tang Tang. Mommy is going to take care of business. Play together with Great White and Little Black. Mommy will be back soon. Yuanwan smiled. Okay. Tang Tang was compliant and nodded. A moment later, Yuanwan cleaned up a little and followed Big Dipper to the conference room. Inside the conference room, an elderly man was dressed in a black shirt and black pants, looking very proper. He sat on one side with a cane in hand. This is the president of the Fearless Alliance, by phone. Big Dipper made introductions. The elderly man nodded and scrutinized Yi Wan before using his cane to stand up. He greeted Yi Wan with a smile. President Bai, it's an honor to meet you at last. No need for the formalities, elderly sir. May I ask what urgent matter you had for visiting our fearless alliance? Yi Wan sat down and looked at the elderly man from the direct line, cutting straight to the point. The elderly man smiled faintly. President Bai is very straightforward. Great. Then I won't beat around the bush either. I came here today to ask President Bai to join the direct lines camp. Yi Wan furrowed her brows at once. Visit website, our list novel. She never anticipated the objective of this elderly man's trip would be to rope her to their side. However, on the other hand, Yi Wan understood. There would definitely be a great battle between the direct line and the collateral branch, and there were many factions in the independent state. Whether it was the collateral branch or the direct line, they probably wished to pull these neutral factions in the independent state to their side. This way, they would have a greater chance when the battle came. Upon seeing Yi Wan's silence, the elderly man continued with a smile. In reality, President Bai should know that our direct line is the legitimate heir of the independent state. Moreover, the direct line is stronger in strength. Of the 12 independent states, our state has become the bottommost state. Back then, was our state ever this pitiful? We think, President Bai. The 12 independent states. Yi Wan looked pensive. This piece of memory was indeed a part of the memories that Yi Wan recalled after the Scarlet Flame's headmaster's hypnosis sessions. It was her grandpa who told her about this too. In truth, the independent state was actually the independent states and was composed of 12 enormous islands. The independent state they were currently in was merely one of the 12 islands, and it wasn't until these 12 islands combined together that the true independent states were formed. However, no independent states had any mutual interactions, so not many people knew about this. President Bai, as long as the Fearless Alliance is willing to support our direct line, when the direct line gains control in the future, we can guarantee that the Fearless Alliance will definitely become better than you are now. What do you think? The elderly man from direct line proposed amiably. Please speak, President Bai, the elderly man said. My parents, the Madam and Patriarch of the Nye family, they were captured by the direct line, right? Yi Wan asked him. Yes. The elderly man from the direct line nodded frankly. Yi Wan didn't expect this old man from the direct line to be this honest. He was too honest. She didn't freaking know how to respond. I know President Bai has some misunderstandings toward our direct line, and the main cause of this misunderstanding is Nye Linglong. The elderly man smiled at Yi Wan. In truth, the direct line has too many members, and a member like Nye Linglong is merely considered an offshoot and not worth a mention. Our direct line can't demand every member to obey the rules. Someone always acts recklessly and disobey the rules. There's nothing we can do. The corners of Yi Wan's lips twitched. What kind of freaking twisted logic was this? The direct line's members were disobeying the rules and acting recklessly outside, but it was unrelated to their direct line? Couldn't he have some shame? In truth, Nye Linglong is extremely ambitious. To be quite honest, the direct line doesn't like overly ambitious people like her, so we've already kicked her out of the direct line. As for President Bai's parents, they were captured by Nye Linglong. The elderly man continued. For some reason, Yi Wan suddenly started respecting the direct line for being able to say something like this without skipping a beat and tossing away all responsibility so cleanly. They truly had thick hides. After all, Nye Linglong was dead, so they could say whatever they wanted. President Bai, if you're willing to join the direct line and persuade your parents to support the direct line, we can immediately release them, the elderly man added. Let's not waste our breaths. Tell me, just who was the mysterious person Nye Linglong reported to? He and Nye Linglong killed my brother, so I will make them pay with their lives. A cold glint flashed across Yi Wan's eyes. The elderly man's eyes glimmered. President Bai, there isn't any mysterious person. Third elder shouted coldly. How could there be no one? When I tracked Nye Linglong that night, she made contact with a mysterious person, and they discussed eliminating nameless Nief first. The elderly man's fingers started tapping on the table. "You're free to consider my suggestion, President Bai." After saying that, the elderly man stood up and left without waiting for Yi Wanwan's response. Yi Wanwan's expression darkened. She was certain that the mysterious person definitely existed. Furthermore, that mysterious person held an important position in the direct line. The treatment of nameless Nia alone meant that Yi Wanwan couldn't have any other relationships with the direct line. They could only be enemies. Not long after the direct line left, Big Dipper dashed inside the conference room again. "Damn, Sea Clan, the ancient Sea Clan sent us an invitation." Big Dipper immediately handed her the invitation. After reading the invitation, Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck. The direct line and the collateral branch were truly family and had the same temperament. The direct line just sent people to win her over. Then the ancient Sea Clan also sent her an invitation. That night, Yi Wanwan brought Wenziren, several elders, Big Dipper, Seven Star, and several other members to the ancient Sea Clan. The ancient Sea Clan was considered one of the mammoth powers in the independent state, and the scope of their strength was frightening. Inside the ancient Sea Clan's conference room, Yi Wanwan immediately caught sight of Si Yihan sitting next to the leader of the ancient Sea Clan. It had to be said that these two people truly looked rather similar. Since it was an important, solemn meeting and the participants were all leaders from the independent state, Yi Wanwan and Si Yihan didn't interact too much. And the leader of the Sea Clan's words were simple and easy to understand. He wanted them to join the collateral branch and resist the direct line's invasion together. However, all the major factions were non-committal, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. No one wanted to be the first one. The second any of them agreed, it'd be the same as becoming enemies with the direct line. Even Yi Wanwan didn't declare whether she would join the ancient clans and the collateral branch's camp or not. Right now, Madame and Patriarch Nia were imprisoned in the direct line. If the Fearless Alliance and the Nia family joined the collateral branch, it might infuriate the direct line, leading to unthinkable consequences. This was in line with Si Yihan's intentions. He didn't want her to act rashly and wanted them to watch and wait for the right opportunity. After departing from the ancient Sea Clan, Si Yihan escorted Yi Wanwan back to the Fearless Alliance's headquarters. The family of three ate dinner there, and Si Yihan didn't leave until Tang Dang fell asleep. Lately, Azura had too many affairs waiting for attention, and Si Yihan needed to personally take care of them. 2 days afterward, both the Fearless Alliance and Prison announced that the Fearless Alliance would join Prison and become Prison's fourth core faction. Right now, the Fearless Alliance was tightly bound together with Prison, and they could share their resources, especially in an unusual period of time like this. Furthermore, something occurred that sent shocks throughout the independent state. Azura single-handedly eradicated 3 branches of the Martial Arts Union and destroyed 6 of their vital storehouses in one night. After that, the Martial Arts Union retaliated, and Heavenly Hatred Slaughter's Gate also joined. The battle couldn't be stopped. Agio, why did you start fighting with the Martial Arts Union? From the Fearless Alliance, Yi Wanwan initiated a video call with Si Yihan. "Where's Tang Tang?" Si Yihan asked. "He just finished eating, and he's playing with Great White and Little Black on the 13th floor." Yi Wanwan answered truthfully. "Wait, I was asking you why you started fighting with the Martial Arts Union." Lately, the independent state was in an extremely tumultuous state already, so it would have been best if the matter with the Martial Arts Union was stowed aside for now. "What do you think?" Si Yihan retorted. In truth, Yi Wanwan could guess that Azura didn't attack the Martial Arts Union because of what happened on the island. It was probably because of what Si Xia did to her back then. However, making anyone from Prison assess the current situation was simply unrealistic. Which one of them didn't act as their heart desired, including the Fearless Alliance? "You don't need to get involved with this matter. It's just a minor battle," Si Yihan said. Yi Wanwan didn't refute this point. Both the Martial Arts Union and Prison didn't exert their whole strength, so it could indeed be considered a minor battle. Those leaders they rescued from the remote island announced their unconditional support for the collateral branch immediately. After that, the direct line acted and promptly dispatched a lot of assassins after those leaders. In a short amount of time, a dozen or so leaders were assassinated. If it weren't for Azura having the foresight to send people to protect those leaders immediately and warn them, the consequences would have been inconceivable. It wasn't only the direct line. The collateral branch also acted identically to the direct line and dispatched a lot of assassins from the ancient clans, secretly assassinating those leaders who had announced their support for the direct line. However, what no one anticipated were the sudden actions of piece of shit, Ishuehan. Nearly all of those well-trained assassins sent by the ancient clans died in the hands of Ishuehan. Right now, the entire independent state was attempting to stay out of it, and many factions were still observing, including the Fearless Alliance and the two other core factions of Prison. Meanwhile, Azura had publicized their support for the collateral branch long ago and became one of the collateral branch's biggest helpers. Suddenly, the relationships in the independent state turned tangled and complicated and hard to describe. Major factions belonged to different camps, and small-scale battles would erupt nearly every day. As for the four great clans, they fell to the observer side. The direct line and the collateral branch sent someone to visit and lobby the four great clans nearly every day, but never received a definite response. Nonetheless, Yuanwan was incredibly aware that it was absolutely impossible for powers at the level of the four great clans to rest easy, maintain neutrality, and stay out of the conflict. The time merely hadn't come yet. Once the time was ripe, the four great clans had to make a decision. This battle involved the entire independent state. Not a single power could remain on the sidelines. Even if they were unwilling to join the war between the direct line and the collateral branch, they had no choice. Late at night, in the Fearless Alliance, Yuanwan's thoughts raced as she mulled over what road she should take in the future. Right now, her parents were still in the hands of the direct line. If she rashly supported the collateral branch and provoked the direct line, it would be idiotic. Yuanwan merely wanted to avenge her brother, nameless Nya, and rescue her parents from the hands of the direct line. She truly was uninterested in the overarching war between the collateral branch and the direct line, governing the independent state and such. It had nothing to do with her. Yuanwan suddenly called outside the door. "Sis Foam, you were looking for me?" Big Dipper entered the room. "Call some people. We're going to visit the direct line," Yuanwan instructed. Big Dipper was dumbfounded. "No way, right? Sis Foam? We're going to the direct line at this critical time." "Nonsense. What's wrong with going to the direct line?" Yuanwan asked. If we visit the direct line, isn't it the same as supporting the direct line?" Big Dipper scratched his head. "Enough rubbish. Hurry and make preparations," Yuanwan ordered impatiently. Soon, several elders of the Fearless Alliance, Big Dipper, Seven Star, and top higher-ups like when Zyron all departed and headed toward the perimeters of the Fearless Alliance's territory. "Your visit this late at night is truly surprising, President Bai." An elderly man from the direct line greeted with a smile as he hastily walked outside to receive them. Yuanwan wasn't unfamiliar with this elderly man. He was the one who had visited the Fearless Alliance these past few days. "I won't waste time with you. My objective for coming here today is very simple. The Fearless Alliance and the Nye family will support the direct line, but you must release my parents first." Yuanwan got straight to the point. The elderly man's expression turned joyful. "That's right." Yuanwan nodded. "Great, if that's really true, then President Bai's parents are naturally our honored guests. The direct line will immediately release them." The elderly man from direct line nodded. Before Yuanwan could say anything, the elderly man continued. "However, since both the Fearless Alliance and the Nye family are supporting the direct line, let's sign a treaty." The elderly man sent his subordinate a look. The subordinate immediately brought a war treaty to them. When Yuanwan read the contents, she was dumbstruck. The direct line was seriously freaking cunning and calculating. This type of war treaty was managed by the 12 Independent States Arbitration Council. The 12 Independent States Arbitration Council represented the largest-scale neutral power in the 12 independent states. Nearly all of the rules in the independent states were crafted by the Arbitration Council, and no one dared to violate the decisions of the Arbitration Council. Even the direct line and collateral branch didn't have the guts. This treaty would actually be directly supervised by the Arbitration Council. If either party violated it. What? You don't trust me, elderly sir? I'm the president of the Fearless Alliance and the head of the Nye family, to say the least. What happened to trust between humans? Could it be our trust is less than this piece of paper? Yuan said to the elderly man with a sigh. The elderly man from Direct Line chuckled and looked at Yuan. President Bai, if it was another faction saying this, I would have believed it. However, it's precisely because President Bai is the president of the Fearless Alliance that we must honestly carry out what we promised and sign this war treaty. What about the Fearless Alliance, huh? Shouldn't you ask around? The Fearless Alliance, especially me, the president, has always sworn by our word, Yuan replied. President Bai, everyone knows about the Fearless Alliance's reputation, so you don't need to say any more. Of course, the Direct Line believes in President Bai's sincerity, but let's sign the treaty, the elderly man said. You're too freaking shameless. In the end, Yuan had no choice but to pick up the pen and sign the treaty, as well as stamping her handprint on the document. Good now, Yuan pushed the contract back toward them. The elderly man examined the treaty for a moment before nodding at Yuan and smiling. It's good. Welcome to the Direct Line's big family, Fearless Alliance and Nye family. Where's my dad and mom? Yuan asked. Don't worry, President Bai. Your father and mother are at a different branch. They will return to the Nye residence early tomorrow morning, the elderly man replied. Yuan nodded. Fine, I'll trust you this one time. After saying that, she led the Fearless Alliance group out of the room. Damn, Sis Feng, are we really joining the Direct Line? Isn't this too hasty? Big Dipper asked on their return trip. Yuan brusquely snapped, her mood sour. She previously planned to trick the Direct Line and make them release her parents first. Nothing was more important than her parents' safety. Who would have thought the Direct Line would be so difficult to trick? They directly pulled out a war treaty that was managed by the Arbitration Council. After you signed this contract, the Direct Line wouldn't care whether you fulfilled your end of the bargain or not, because at that time, the people from the Arbitration Council would appear personally. Even the Direct Line and the Collateral Branch had to be on their best behavior and act courteously when they met with the Arbitration Council. It seemed to be a bit tricky this time. However, Yuan had never seen the Arbitration Council and was clueless about their true capabilities. Xiao Feng, the Arbitration Council is above the 12 independent states' laws and system, Wen Xiren said. Everyone in the 12 independent states has to obey the Arbitration Council's laws and implementations. This includes the ban on firearms and explosives, which is clearly prohibited by the Arbitration Council. If anyone violates the laws, the Arbitration Council will act personally, and no one can save the violator. I know that, Yuan replied. In Yuan's memories, Nameless Nye nearly became a consultant for the Arbitration Council, but he rejected the position. Yuan never expected the Arbitration Council to be this frightening. Thankfully, I'm prepared. Do you think I'd lose against the Direct Line in terms of shamelessness? Yuan's lips turned up with a smirk. In the midst of Yuan's anxious waiting, Madam and Patriarch Nye finally returned. Right now, in the Nye residence living room, Madam and Patriarch Nye were sitting in the chief seats while Yuan stayed near them. Judging from Madam and Patriarch Nye's appearances, the Direct Line didn't seem to have done anything to them and merely imprisoned them normally. Yuan couldn't find even a superficial scratch on them. Worryless, we have to thank you this time, Madam Nye said as she grasped Yuan's hand. Dad, Mom, I'm glad you're fine. Yuan smiled happily. As long as Dad and Mom were all right, she was relieved. Yuan couldn't withstand losing any more of her family. Worryless, where's your eldest brother? Patriarch Nye looked around the room and didn't see Nameless Nye. Dad, eldest brother, he accepted a mission earlier and went elsewhere. It will probably be a while before he's back, Yuanwan answered. Yuanwan previously laid down the order that no one was allowed to reveal what happened to Nameless Nye, to Madame, and Patriarch Nye. Any violators would be expelled from the Nye family. Hurry and tell your brother to come back. Our Nye family won't be able to stay out of the conflict between the direct line and the collateral branch, Patriarch Nye said with a frown. Dad, I told eldest brother already, but eldest brother isn't in the independent state right now, and he's overseas. Right now, the independent state has gone under lockdown because of the battle that's about to happen. So eldest brother couldn't come back even if he wanted to, Yuanwan said. Patriarch Nye snorted. If your brother could be half as good as you, your mom and I could die without any worries. Dad, Mom, actually eldest brother is really good. Don't blame him. I agreed to let him accept the mission too, and who would have expected things to play out this way as soon as eldest brother left? Yuanwan said after a moment of silence. Forget it. Madame Nye shook her head. We're used to this, but we absolutely can't lower our guard in the battle between the direct line and the collateral branch this time. I'm leaning toward the collateral branch. Yuanwan completely anticipated her parents to lean toward the collateral branch. If they were captured and imprisoned by the direct line and turned around to support the direct line moments after they were released, that would be absurd. That ingrate, Nye Linglong, Patriarch Nye's eyes glinted coldly. Immediately issue a Nye family warrant and capture her at all costs. Patriarch and Madame Nye were still unaware of the fact that Nye Linglong was dead already. The current situation was so chaotic. If she informed them of the truth at this critical time, and her parents did something in their incensed state, the consequences would be unthinkable. According to the terms of the treaty, the Fearless Alliance had to announce its cooperation with the direct line within 3 days. However, when the third day came, there still wasn't any activity from the Fearless Alliance. In the Fearless Alliance's conference room, every higher-up from the Fearless Alliance was gathered there, as well as members from the Rose of Death that Yuanwan previously founded. Little Lolita, Heidi, and the others were intently looking at Yuanwan. It had been such a long time, they thought their master had forgotten about them. Right now, the Rose of Death was developing fairly successfully. They had the support of the Fearless Alliance's funds in their initial stage, which greatly alleviated any pressure. Recently, the Rose of Death maintained a decent relationship with the surrounding groups and conducted many business dealings with other people. The Rose of Death today wasn't the Rose of Death of the past anymore. Aside from a few old faces, the majority of the higher-ups from the Rose of Death were new faces and possessed extraordinary strength. The elders from the Rose of Death settled their gazes on Yuanwan. So this woman before them was the leader of the Rose of Death. It was their first time meeting her. Luiying, Yuanwan suddenly called. Luiying nodded in response. From this moment on, the Fearless Alliance is announcing it will declare war on the Rose of Death, the kind that won't cease until one side is dead, Yuanwan declared with a serious expression. Whether it was the higher-ups from the Fearless Alliance or the higher-ups from the Rose of Death, they were dumbfounded. What freaking game was this? The Fearless Alliance was declaring a life-or-death war on the Rose of Death. Just what was their president playing at? Didn't both the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death belong to her? If a war was declared, wasn't it the same as fighting herself? Sis Phone, what do you mean? Big Dipper looked at Yuanwan in incomprehension. The literal meaning, Yuanwan replied. Before Big Dipper could respond, Luiying suddenly stood up. From today onward, the Rose of Death is at war with the Fearless Alliance. Within half a day, news of the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death at war with each other rapidly spread throughout the independent state. All the major factions in the independent state started paying attention to this inexplicable war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death. The Rose of Death? Which Rose of Death? Is it that world-class power Rose of Death? How's that possible? If it was really that Rose of Death, news of them would have burst everywhere already. Moreover, why did the Fearless Alliance have to declare war on that old Rose of Death? Are they suicidal? Is that even a question? It must be some new emerging power, and the leader is probably an admirer of the old Rose of Death, so they named their group the Rose of Death too. Strange. How did a new minor faction like the Rose of Death suddenly become enemies with the Fearless Alliance? The Fearless Alliance's own strength is frighteningly fearsome already, and it recently announced it would become Prison's fourth core faction days ago. All the groups in the independent state couldn't understand the Rose of Death's suicidal behavior and simply treated it as a show. Some factions believed that the Rose of Death was merely impulsive. There was no way they would really start fighting. It probably wouldn't be long until they knelt in front of Baifeng to kowtow and apologize profusely. You have to provide funds and forces in the afternoon of the fourth day. The elderly man from the direct line visited the Fearless Alliance again. Yi Wanwan received the elderly man in the conference room. President Bai, I remember we previously signed a war treaty, right? The elderly man asked. When Yi Wanwan heard that, the corners of her lips turned up and she nodded. Of course I haven't forgotten. The direct line honors promises, and I naturally wouldn't go back on my word either. Then this is a little strange. The war treaty clearly states that the Fearless Alliance needs to announce it has established an alliance with the direct line within 3 days of signing the treaty. It has been 4 days now, but the Fearless Alliance is still immobile. Don't you think this is a little improper, President Bai? The elderly man asked. What are you saying, sir? Don't you know that the Fearless Alliance has declared war on a group? Yi Wanwan retorted with a faint smile. Oh, are you referring to that admirer of the Rose of Death, President Bai? The group that's also called the Rose of Death. The elderly man said pensively. That's right. Yi Wanwan nodded hastily. President Bai, based on my knowledge, that Rose of Death was founded recently and can't compare to the Fearless Alliance in both finances or manpower. Moreover, what does the Fearless Alliance going to battle with the Rose of Death have anything to do with announcing your alliance treaty with the direct line? Elderly sir, that's not right. First of all, you're overly underestimating the Rose of Death. Although they're still a young group, they're swimming in money and had a large number of experts join in a short amount of time. So their scope isn't inferior to the Fearless Alliance at all. Also, you said it yourself, elderly sir, the Fearless Alliance signed an alliance treaty with the direct line, and it's written in black and white in this treaty that this is a mutual alliance. If the direct line engages in a war, the Fearless Alliance will unconditionally support you without shirking. We'll provide money if we have money, and provide people if we have people. Similarly, if our Fearless Alliance goes to war, the direct line also has to unconditionally support us. Yi Wanwan smiled faintly. The elderly man became contemplative after hearing that. His fingers lightly tapped the surface of the table as he looked at Yi Wanwan. So, what are you saying, President Bai? Not much. Sure, the Fearless Alliance will immediately announce it has reached an alliance agreement with the direct line. Yi Wanwan then called First Elder into the conference room. President. First Elder stopped nearby and looked at Yi Wanwan. First Elder, immediately go and announce that the Fearless Alliance will unconditionally support the direct line from today onward. Yi Wanwan said. All right, President. This subordinate understands. First Elder nodded before promptly turning to the elderly man from the direct line. Then, since it's like that, we'll request the direct line to support us with money and manpower. Our war with the Rose of Death is about to begin. The elderly man wrinkled his brows. Was President Fearless acting slick with him? Right now, the direct line was preparing intensely for its war with the collateral branch. How could they have extra finances and manpower to help the Fearless Alliance fight against another faction? Moreover, back then, the direct line made the Fearless Alliance sign a war alliance treaty so that the Fearless Alliance would support their direct line. How come the Fearless Alliance was making the direct line provide money and strength to help them go to war instead? What cosmic joke was this? Thinking on your behalf, First Elder. Yi Wanwan shot First Elder a look. What are you saying? Does the direct line Need us to remind them? Yi Wanwan slapped the treaty on the conference table. Everything is written clearly in this treaty. Are you saying Direct Line will be indifferent to the Fearless Alliance's struggle against the Rose of Death? This is a conditional contract that's directly managed by the Arbitration Council. You're too disrespectful, First Elder. First Elder nodded frantically and turned to the elderly man from the Direct Line with an apologetic expression. The president is right. This subordinate didn't think things through thoroughly. Our treaty is managed by the Arbitration Council, so Direct Line definitely won't sit by and do nothing. It's all this subordinate's fault for running my mouth before thinking it through. Yuan smiled faintly. Of course, say, our Fearless Alliance is quite lucky. If we didn't sign this war treaty, we'd have definitely spent a lot of money and people in this war with the Rose of Death. But it's great now that we have the Direct Line's help. We won't have to worry about expenses or manpower and can directly pulverize the Rose of Death to death. Right, you're correct, President. When a faction like us fights a war, we're fighting with money. Now that we have the Direct Line providing money and strength, First Elder added seriously. Yuan waved her hand and interrupted. First Elder, why are you so chatty? Hurry and announce it. After we've announced it, we can attack the Rose of Death. Yes, this subordinate will leave now. After we announce it, the conditions of the treaty will officially go into effect. After saying that, First Elder turned to leave. The elderly man from the Direct Line suddenly stood up. Wait. First Elder stopped and turned around, looking at the other elderly man in confusion. Elderly sir, what is it? Is there a problem? Yuan asked curiously. The elderly man chuckled lightly and answered, There's no hurry to make an announcement. Yuan immediately shook her head. How could there be no hurry? You don't feel hurried, elderly sir, but I feel hurried. We have to announce it. We're waiting to go to war. No hurry, no hurry, the elderly man quietly replied. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Yuan turned to First Elder. What are you standing around for? Quickly go and announce it. All right, President. The elderly man from the Direct Line interjected. It's like this, President Bai. Since the Fearless Alliance is busy these next few days, you can take care of business first and make the announcement after it's taken care of. Yuan frowned deeply and looked at the elderly man with displeasure. Say, don't tell me the Direct Line is unwilling to provide money or people. It's written clearly in our treaty that our cooperation is mutual. We will support the Direct Line, and the Direct Line will also support the Fearless Alliance. How come the Direct Line is cowering when the Fearless Alliance needs to fight a war? You're the Direct Line, no? Isn't that improper? The elderly man answered, President Bai, you've misunderstood my meaning and the Direct Line. This war treaty is managed by the Arbitration Council, so we wouldn't dare to not fulfill the terms. If President Fearless really wants the Direct Line to interfere and help, that's fine. It's just that we were thinking on behalf of President Bai and the Fearless Alliance's reputation. Thinking on our behalf. Yuan propped her chin up. What are you saying, elderly sir? What trick are they playing? The elderly man from Direct Line nodded at Yuan and chuckled. President Bai, the Fearless Alliance is at least a top faction in the independent state. Am I correct? Yuan replied, Of course. Sir, if you ask about the Fearless Alliance or mention Bai Feng's name, children would start crying. Exactly. The Fearless Alliance and President Bai have a thunderous reputation in the independent state. There isn't anyone in the independent state who doesn't know about you. What is the Rose of Death in comparison? Not only are they a knockoff group, but they also haven't been around for that long. In a war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, everyone knows the Rose of Death is seeking their own deaths and trying to hit a rock with an egg. If the Direct Line rashly interferes at this time and provides money and support, so what if it's a crushing victory? At that time, everyone in the independent state would gossip and say that not only did the Fearless Alliance bully a newly founded knockoff group, but they also made the Direct Line join. It wouldn't be good if that got around, right? Yuan pursed her mouth. So what? I don't care. The elderly man from Direct Line actually President, this subordinate thinks the direct line is right. If the direct line interferes, we'd humiliate ourselves even if we won. First elder interjected. Oh, it's really humiliating? Yuan repeated. President, with a strong bullying the weak to begin with. If we make the direct line join too. First elder looked a little embarrassed. That's right, that's right. The elderly man from direct line smiled faintly. What first elder is saying is what I'm trying to express. It's not worth it. Yuan rubbed her chin and mulled over this for a long time before finally nodding. Fine. It's really not worth it if it's as you both say. It's rather humiliating, though I don't care whether it's humiliating or not. However, while I don't care about shame, the direct line has to worry about shame, right? Then we'll hold off on that, and we'll eradicate the rose of death ourselves. Haha. Even if the Fearless Alliance attacks on your own, the rose of death will definitely be eradicated within 3 days, the elderly man from direct line said. I'll destroy them in 2 days at most. Yuan refuted in good humor. All right, then I wish you great success, President Bai, and I won't disturb you anymore. After saying that, the elderly man stood up and left. Outside the Fearless Alliance, the middle-aged man who came with the elderly man from the direct line frowned and said, Bai Feng is clearly up to something. She's intentionally delaying things. The elderly man snorted and aloofly said, If she wants to delay things, let her delay. I like to see what kind of tricks she can play. The Alliance Treaty is directly managed by the Arbitration Council, so it's useless to fight it regardless of how slick she is. At the same time, the war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death had erupted. The first battle took place in the northern region, and Big Dipper was in charge. However, the battle didn't last 2 hours before the advancing troops led by Big Dipper fell like a landslide and surrendered without much resistance. 1 day later, the main battle between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death also started. The Fearless Alliance's side was led by Yuan personally, while the Rose of Death side was led by a middle-aged man named Liao Chun. The Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death had just engaged when the Fearless Alliance's main force crumbled and was forced to retreat. This situation stupefied every faction in the independent state. Madam and Patriarch Nya originally intended to dispatch some fighting forces from the Nye family to assist the Fearless Alliance, but were solemnly rejected by Yuan. Prison. S4 factions are all defeated. Trepidation filled Yuan. If the Nye family suddenly meddled in this, it would be awful. How would she keep acting out this show? To make things realistic, Yuan didn't inform anyone about her plan, including Azura and Prison's other 2 core factions. However, what Yuan didn't expect was the way it evoked the attention of everyone in the independent state, despite it being an obvious pretend fight. Was the Fearless Alliance's reputation that great? In truth, it wasn't the Fearless Alliance's fame that attracted much attention. The main reason for the sudden interest was the knockoff group, the Rose of Death. That name alone was enough. Everyone wanted to see who was arrogant and egoistically enough to name their faction the Rose of Death, and wanted to watch the Fearless Alliance pulverize this knockoff group. On the battleground, the elites of the Fearless Alliance and the members of the Rose of Death were fighting intensely. Any bystander wouldn't be able to differentiate one side from the other. Fuck me. Attack freaking lighter. You're beating my head with a stick and you're still using that much force. You're freaking getting real with me, aren't you? I'll really hit back, all right? At this moment, Big Dipper and 7 Star joined the fight. Big Dipper had just entered the altercation when he was instantly kicked by little Lolita from the Rose of Death. Big Dipper's face turned ghastly pale, and he started spitting out a large volume of blood from his mouth. Little Lolita, 7 Star glanced at Big Dipper, who had fallen to the ground and was spurting blood from his mouth. It's too much. Brothers, hurry and run. The Rose of Death is too strong. We can't win. Immediately, Big Dipper stood up like nothing happened and slapped the dust off his body before shouting to his fellow members. After saying that, he immediately fled to the rear. Read more chapters at List Novel. Calm, the members of the Fearless Alliance looked at each other and promptly fled as well. The leader on the Rose of Death side, Liao Chun, was rendered speechless. Even if they were acting, couldn't they act a bit more realistically? He wasn't asking for much, just a teeny bit more realistic acting would do. Big Dipper was lightly kicked, but spat blood for a whole freaking minute. This was a freaking joke. On the Fearless Alliance's side, Yuan sat with her ankle on her knee and nodded in satisfaction as she watched the battle. However, before Yuan could communicate with Liao Chun, she suddenly caught sight of Azura's group. Sweat drenched Yuan's body in an instant. Agio. Yuan hastily dialed Si Yihan's number. Si Yihan's voice was emitted from the phone. Don't mess this up. We're acting. Yuan hurriedly said, There's a mission today. They're just passing by, Si Yihan replied. Mission? Passing by? So I'm being delusional. Is he really my man? Like he said, Azura really was just passing by. Azura traversed through the battleground and left without turning back, as though they didn't see anything. However, this scene took on a different flavor in the eyes of many leaders of the independent state. Fuck me. Who the heck is the Rose of Death? Aren't they too freaking strong? Even Azura's main fighting force was instantly defeated? Just what's going on? Hold on. I think I also saw heavenly hatred in Slaughter's Gate. My God, the Rose of Death instantly defeated the Fearless Alliance, heavenly hatred, Azura, and also Slaughter's Gate. They couldn't win a 4-against-1 battle. How long has it been? Must take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance. It's over. The 4 core factions of prison were instantly crushed by the Rose of Death and utterly defeated. Then, could it be it's not a knockoff? That Rose of Death is really the old Rose of Death. Within half a day, the Rose of Death had resurrected and managed to defeat the 4 core factions of prison like breaking off a stick from a dead tree. Did we see things wrong? Maybe Azura was just passing by? Passing by? Bullshit. Are you an idiot? What's the relationship between Azura and the Fearless Alliance? President Fearless and Lord Azura even have a child together. So, of course, he was bringing heavenly hatred in Slaughter's Gate over to help the Fearless Alliance, but couldn't win. Half a day later, the Fearless Alliance declared its defeat. Another half a day later, the Rose of Death announced all of the higher-ups and elites of the Fearless Alliance surrendered and transferred into the Rose of Death. Now, the Fearless Alliance turned into an empty shell. At the same time, Yuan led an empty-shelled Fearless Alliance and announced she would unconditionally support the Direct Line. Aside from the unconditional support for the Direct Line, Yuan also announced she'd go to the Arbitration Council and sue the Direct Line. The Fearless Alliance and the Direct Line clearly signed an alliance treaty and promised unconditional mutual support for each other. However, during the war between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, the Direct Line kept making excuses and was unwilling to provide assistance, which is what led to the Fearless Alliance's defeat. The Direct Line didn't strictly adhere to the terms of the alliance treaty, so they must take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance's defeat. At the Direct Line's branch, the expression of the elderly man from the Direct Line was so dark that ink could drip from it. He never expected the Fearless Alliance to be shameless to this extent. What a nice move of substituting a raccoon for the Crown Prince. Although the Direct Line didn't have any evidence, the elderly man knew that the knockoff Rose of Death had to be a part of the Fearless Alliance, and the two groups were merely acting. The Fearless Alliance intentionally pretended to be no match for them and were defeated. So all the higher-ups and elite members of the Fearless Alliance surrendered and were absorbed into the Rose of Death, leaving behind an empty shell in the Fearless Alliance. And the president of the Fearless Alliance, by phone, was extremely shameless. She brought the hollowed-out Fearless Alliance with her and announced her support for the Direct Line. What purpose did the Direct Line have for the support of an empty shell? Not only that, but she was actually suing the Direct Line at the Arbitration Council and claiming that the Direct Line didn't help. So they had to take full responsibility for the Fearless Alliance's defeat. At that moment, The elderly man from the direct line wanted nothing more than to mangle Yi Wanwan into pieces. However, what was most headache-inducing wasn't President Fearless supporting the direct line with an empty shell in tow. It was them suing the direct line at the Arbitration Council. They signed a treaty with the Fearless Alliance, and the treaty clearly stated the cooperation was mutual. If the Fearless Alliance was engaged in a war, the direct line must also help. This was the direct line's responsibility. However, who could have expected the Fearless Alliance and the knockoff Rose of Death to be acting? The mighty Fearless Alliance crumbled in defeat within a day. Half a day ago, the elderly man, who had been constantly observing the battle between the Fearless Alliance and the Rose of Death, had detected something was amiss and intended to immediately lead people to support the Fearless Alliance due to the terms of the Alliance Treaty. However, the Fearless Alliance was defeated too freaking fast. It didn't give them any time to obey the terms of the Alliance Treaty. President Fearless, the elderly man from the direct line, fumed with rage between gritted teeth. "You're too shameless." Chapter 2209, Did She Still Want Her Damn Pride? The elderly man from the direct line wore a dark expression on his face. Not only did President Fearless leave the hollowed-out Fearless Alliance for the direct line, but she was also taking the direct line to court at the Arbitration Council. Did she still want her damn pride? At that same moment, in the Nye residence, in the living room, Madame and Patriarch Nye were beaming with joy. Who would have expected the knockoff Rose of Death to be a pretense? It was a second cloak used by their daughter to cover the Fearless Alliance. Worryless. Your scheme was deployed too cleverly. Patriarch Nye praised Yi Wanwan joyously. In order to rescue them from the direct line, Yi Wanwan had no choice but to pretend to agree and sign an alliance treaty with the direct line. However, a war occurred between the Fearless Alliance and the knockoff Rose of Death, and the Fearless Alliance was defeated and forced to surrender. As a result, all of the Fearless Alliance's power was transferred to the knockoff Rose of Death. This way, it wouldn't be a problem for Yi Wanwan to give the entire hollow Fearless Alliance to the direct line, let alone saying the Fearless Alliance would support direct line. Aside from that, Yi Wanwan also got leverage on the direct line and would sue the direct line at the Arbitration Council now, the charge being that the direct line didn't adhere to the terms of the Alliance Treaty. Madame Nye was filled with pride as she looked at Yi Wanwan. Just how did her daughter's mind develop? How did she think of such a scheme? But Worryless, you must be more careful in the future. The Arbitration Council isn't to be taken lightly. If the direct line gains leverage on you and retaliates, the consequences would be inconceivable. Patriarch Nye warned Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan nodded at once. She would prudently treat the Arbitration Council and wouldn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Haha, say, don't you think this direct line is a bit dumb? They were led in circles by our daughter. Patriarch Nye joked with Madame Nye. Madame Nye glanced at her husband. How are they dumb? If it was you, would you have predicted Worryless to pull this trick? The cicada shed its carapace, substituting a raccoon for the crown prince, finding a loophole in the Alliance Treaty and turning the tables back on the direct line. If it were me, I really wouldn't have predicted it, Patriarch Nye replied. Exactly. So what do you mean the direct line is dumb? It was clearly Worryless who's too clever. She's so similar to her brother when he was younger, Madame Nye said. At the mention of nameless Nye, Patriarch Nye's expression dropped instantly. Don't talk about that damn punk. He never has any discipline. Dad, Mom. Yi Wanwan looked at her parents and asked, just who are the Arbitration Council? Patriarch Nye took a sip of tea before explaining. The Arbitration Council is a council that's above the 12 independent states and is considered the 12 independent states' supervisor and judge. Both the abolishment and establishment of the 12 independent states' laws need to pass through the Arbitration Council. Let's put it this way. Any leader or overlord is under the governance of the Arbitration Council. The direct line and the collateral branch might be considered the independent states' strongest factions, but they're nothing when they meet at the Arbitration Council. Without rules, nothing can be done. and the existence of the Arbitration Council was the law, and every member of the 12 independent states had to obey them. That fearsome, huh? Yuan looked pensive. Your brother, nameless Nya, caught the eyes of the Arbitration Council, and they wanted your brother to become a consultant, but your brother was unwilling to go. So infuriating, Patriarch Nya said. Chapter 22:10 Acted Overkill. What's a consultant? Yuan was intrigued. In the 12 independent states, the Arbitration Council recruits a consultant from every state. To put it plainly, their responsibility is to report their state's situation to the Arbitration Council. Patriarch Nya replied. How does the Martial Arts Union compare to the Arbitration Council? Yuan asked. Madame Nya smiled. Worryless Nya, the Martial Arts Union is merely one individual faction. In truth, every state has a group that's similar to the Martial Arts Union, and this kind of group is simply an imitation of the Arbitration Council. Understanding finally dawned on Yuan after listening to Madame Nya's explanation. In other words, the Arbitration Council was the authentic version, while groups like the Martial Arts Union were merely pirated copies. Worryless, keep working hard, and maybe one day, you'll become our state's consultant for the Arbitration Council. Right now, out of the 12 independent states, only our state doesn't have a consultant, Patriarch Nya said cheerfully. Yuan felt her head swelling. Her martial arts achievements definitely couldn't compare to her elder brother, nameless Nya. Even though her intelligence was higher, it was only artificially forced higher by her shamelessness. People talked about the Arbitration Council as such a high-end and classy entity, so they probably wouldn't care for a shameless person like her, right? After eating dinner with Patriarch and Madame Nya, Yuan drove back to the Fearless Alliance. The current Fearless Alliance had turned into an empty shell, and only a handful of people remained. Even Great White and Virus were moved to the rows of Death's headquarters. Sis Feng, you're finally back. A young man, whose entire body was covered in gauze and who walked with a limp, appeared next to Yuan. Who are you? Yuan was bewildered. Me. Sis Feng, it's me. I'm Big Dipper. Can't you recognize my voice? Big Dipper hastily said. Who? Big Dipper. Yuan was dumbstruck as she stared at Big Dipper. It had only been a few hours, so how did this guy end up like this? Who beat you? Yuan asked. No one beat me. I purposefully dressed like this. Our scouts told us that the old geezer from the direct line is coming again, so I quickly made myself look more sorrowful, or else they won't believe us. Big Dipper said. Yuan immediately gave Big Dipper a thumbs up and nodded. Nicely done. Of course, Sis Feng. Big Dipper snickered. Read more chapters at List Novel. Come, let's go and meet that old man, Yuan said. In the conference room, Yuan led the limping and gauze-covered Big Dipper inside the conference room. The elderly man and several members of the direct line were situated in the room already. When the elderly man saw Yuan, he smiled. President Bai, is there any meaning to the game you're playing? Game? Yuan looked at the elderly man. What do you mean? How am I playing? President Bai, we'll ignore the other things, but the Fearless Alliance couldn't even defeat a newly founded knockoff group, and you were destroyed by them instead? Yuan nodded. If we can't win, we can't win. What do we do? Look at him. See how beaten up he is? Yuan pulled Big Dipper toward her. it hurts. It hurts. I couldn't win, ouch. They're strong. Endless wails came from Big Dipper's mouth. Yuan, this is a bit of a freaking overkill. Chapter 22:11 Dawn. Dismantle my stage. The elderly man from Direct Line was so incensed he couldn't talk. He originally thought Bai Feng was merely dragging things out for a few days. Who would have expected her to have thoughts of such a damaging move, causing him to be in a completely disadvantageous position and suffer a double loss? Yuan sat with her legs crossed on the chief's seat in the conference room and coldly looked at the infuriated elderly man from the Direct Line. Wasn't this old guy too naive? Did he really think the Nye family was such an easy target? Just watch. I'll definitely avenge my brother. The elderly man darkly looked at Yi Wan and said, President Bai, aren't you too naive? Do you really think your tacky and lousy methods can deceive everyone? Yi Wan raised her brows. Tacky, lousy methods? Then what are you, the person tricked by my lousy methods? If hostility flared in the elderly man's eyes, and he yelled fiercely, Bai Feng, do you think the entire independent state is blind? Or do you think the Arbitration Council is this easy to fool and they believe your nonsense? Yi Wan smiled at him like he was a fool. This old geezer might hold an enormous amount of power in the independent state, was an important character in the direct line, and possessed outstanding martial strength and tactics. But he was underestimating the impact of a certain weapon. This weapon was public opinion. This was the greatest weapon she learned from China's entertainment industry. Public clamor could confound right and wrong, and defamation could destroy a person. Right now, everyone in the independent state knew the Fearless Alliance was defeated by the Rose of Death, and no one would believe the one-sided story from the direct line. Moreover, thanks to her baby, her last suspicion might be dissipated. If the Fearless Alliance wasn't trustworthy, what about Azura? Slaughter's Gate? Heavenly hatred? Hence, even if the Arbitration Council investigated this matter, this was the only result they'd obtain. Clearly, the elderly man from the direct line was also aware of this point. He was cursing Yi Wan's vileness and shamelessness when footsteps were heard outside the door. The elderly man's subordinate knocked and opened the conference room door with several people in tow. The newcomers were Si Yihin, Jiang Lihan, and Xie Qianchuan. Why are Agio and those two here? Yi Wan reflexively glanced at the elderly man from the direct line, her heart skipping a beat. These three mustn't have a slip of tongue, especially Jiang Lihan. When the elderly man from the direct line saw the newcomers, he immediately received them excitedly. Lord Azura, Gang Leader Jiang, Gang Leader Xie, perfect timing. The three of you are reputable characters in the independent state, so don't tell me you'll also utter nonsense like a certain shameless rascal. That day, your people were merely passing by, so how could they have been defeated by the Rose of Death? These three mammoths were different from the Fearless Alliance. They might be vicious, but they still retained their pride and absolutely wouldn't employ such shameless and despicable methods. Yi Wan immediately warningly glared at the trio. Damn, you better not dismantle my stage at a time like this. When the trio received Yi Wan's, everyone must work as one and act shamelessly at this critical time. Warning gaze. Their expressions turned complicated. Xie Qianchuan looked at the elderly man from the direct line, then Yi Wan before scratching his nose and turning to Si Yihan. As for Jiang Lihan, he had a gut of fury simmering in him. Originally, he was perfectly fine and lazing at home when suddenly the outside world was madly saying that his heavenly hatred in prison was defeated by some knockoff Rose of Death group that came from who knew where. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.